I gotta tell you, I am not sorry. The only thing I'm sorry about is that I stayed as long as I did, and that's it.
Wow.
Because I
Yeah,
have
but
been bothered for a long time, and I had made it clear for a long time that I wanted things to change, and nothing ever seemed to change.
We're so happy that you're here, right where you should have been the whole damn time. P.S. Just saying. Glad that you're
I
back.
know. I said to my business partner the other day, I was like, "Well, my wife just got like 10 more death threats in her DMs, and someone called my son a little Nazi, and I was dropped by CAA's speakers bureau, and like all these things you go through." And I was like, "Maybe we should have just endorsed Ozempic and sex changes for kids and wide open borders. Like, we should have just left it. I should have been the
Wow.
poster girl for all of it, and none of this would have happened. But
Well,
honestly, on my deathbed, I would have regretted it all."
wait,
So
were
you're
you
right.
dropped by CAA Speaker Bureau because of this thing? All right, actual friends. I'm Dave Rubin with my actual friends, Jillian Michaels, making her return, and Sage Steele eating lunch while we are trying to do a professional program. Sage, what are you doing?
I haven't eaten all day and I'm on Central Time and it's 2:00. This is a protein power mix, Jillian Michaels. I don't have my
Wow.
reading glasses, but I think there's very low sugar, 140 calories per serving. I might drink all of it because I'm so hungry. And I got these at Home Goods, naturally.
Jillian, do we feel that that is an acceptable, nutritious lunch for Sage Steele? You obviously
Babe.
are our nutritionist and health expert here.
Yeah, she lost me at Home Goods. That's where
I
she
thought they
lost me,
only sell chairs and potpourri.
right?
Oh, you got to take a deeper dive at Home Goods. I know. This is a judge-free zone, I thought, Jillian.
No, girl, never. No, no, no. Especially when it comes to what you're eating. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, I'm going to put it away, but I'm really hungry. Just know that.
Well,
Well,
Dave, I think we should let her eat, you know?
that's what I was going to say. Why don't we let Sage finish up over there? Little something over here, maybe have a drink, whatever it is. And in the meantime, before we get to the stories, since you haven't been on in a while, it's good to see you, Jillian. You've gone viral like 27 times since we
Oh,
last
you
had you on.
guys.
You're so viral. What's the deal?
Ugh. You know what the deal is? Because I just wear my heart on my sleeve and it
Yep.
pisses everybody off. I don't, I don't try to fence it. I don't try to be politically correct. And a lot of what's going on is upsetting to me. And I think I'm wearing that on my sleeve. I've tackled almost every hot button issue from race in America to friggin' the war in Gaza. And I didn't want to tackle any of it, but it feels like we have no choice because the world is getting crazier by the second. So anyway, I'm glad to be back amongst friends. Let's put it that way.
Real, true, actual friends.
Yeah, well,
Good
we are glad
God.
to have you. And actually, to that point, and then we can get going here, Russell's not with us this week. And actually, he put up a video a few days ago on Instagram that he's taken a little time off because he's feeling, I don't want to put words in his mouth, and people should watch the Instagram video.
So I'm going to take some time off and think about what to do next. I feel like, me, my ego will drag me back in front of a camera before too long. You know what I'm like. I'm going to take this opportunity to cultivate a deeper relationship with God, to reflect on what's happening in this culture, and to see how, what they say is where what you have to offer meets what the world needs. And if I have nothing to offer that the world needs, then that will take care of itself, won't it? I'll just maybe get a little cabin somewhere and be with my beautiful, beautiful children. Anyway, so I'm going to take some time off. We'll see. If the world needs my voice, it will find a way of getting it. Well, it's not like who knows, it might not be a long break. I'm going to have a little break. I'm going to have a little break and continue and pray because, it can't just be sort of this continual futile squabble.
But he's feeling kind of burned out, wasn't sure exactly what he could offer relative to what's going on with politics and culture. And, Sage, especially over the last couple of weeks where this show has kind of become therapy for us, of sort of like what we're doing and then how do we do it as public people and stay sane and all of those things. I saw that from Russell. I wasn't particularly surprised because obviously I know him pretty well, but there is a certain grind to all of this that can get a little nutty. Not that we want anyone's sympathy, but it is a little nutty when you just put yourself out there and then you start getting hit, especially when you get hit from ways you don't think you're going to get hit. It's one thing when you get hit from the people you're supposed to get hit from or by.
I mean, I also feel that when they go after your family, it's not something I ever anticipated. And I mean, they go for the kids, they go for my wife, and it makes you feel, quite honestly, a little unstable. And Sage, you'll appreciate this. I have a lot of friends who are Christian, and I've been speaking to them about their principles, and they've said to me, Jillian, listen, you don't even have to start with a divinity piece. But the principles are a pretty good guideline for navigating your feelings throughout all of this, because I have come this close at times to giving into, let's just say, the low ground and fighting fire with fire. And I'm trying really hard not to do that and to take the high ground, Dave, like you do, like you and I were just talking about off camera.
Sometimes.
You do, Dave, you do, and so do you, Sage, and I think that's maybe why we all get along, but it's particularly challenging because the world is particularly hostile, and I don't think it's just for us. Normies on the street tell me they feel exactly the same way amongst their coworkers or, their family members. I think people are just feeling under siege. I really do. Overwhelmed.
Well, first of all, I'm glad Russell's doing what he's doing. And yes, this has turned into therapy the last few weeks. I absolutely love it. And I feel like sometimes I forget that it's going to go out to the masses.
Right. This is just our weekly therapy call.
Yeah, but that's the goal, is to be able to have a conversation unfiltered. And then hopefully, I mean, my hope is that when we do share that and get kind of vulnerable, that others can feel like they're not alone, et cetera. But when things happen, and Jillian, you and I talked a week or two ago when you had was that your most recent viral or just one of the many viral, the walking off the set?
I think that was my most recent viral, but all transparency, it had been building for a long time.
Where's your proof that $150 million was offered from Bibi Netanyahu?
No, I'm referring.
Where is the proof?
Please do not get any.
No, because I didn't want to cover this, and you guys insisted. And I told you, you cover this. I'm going to rip you apart. Where is the proof?
We're not saying that it
Netanyahu
We're really
offered
not saying
Charlie $150 million. Where is the proof that actually happened?
I just said, according to this guy's reporting, he was offered $150 million.
Okay,
that
was also corroborated by Candace?
It was corroborated by Candace, and not only that, by Nick.
And also
because listen, I like Candace. She has... People from his own team have said he has not seen her in years.
And yet last year they were on tour together. Last year they were on tour together.
I don't think that Israel killed him because there's no evidence of that. But I had a problem with Netanyahu exploiting an assassination in this country for his own political means and purposes. And lying about the nature of his relationship with Charlie Kirk. Because Charlie Kirk didn't like Netanyahu. Just like any warm-blooded American shouldn't. Netanyahu is a bad guy. And he wanted to make it seem like, no, we were all great. We were good. We had a great relationship. Little did we know behind the scenes, there was a lot of pressure toward ends up being about how do we bash Israel. This is not for me. I'm not interested in this.
Okay,
I love you guys.
I'm sorry.
Let's be good. Let's be good about precious Israel. Let the country committing a genocide. Yeah. Okay. Zero. I think you guys are great. I fundamentally disagree with you about every show doing this. I'm sorry.
Cool.
And I had set my boundaries repeatedly. And I was like, you can do this on your own individual platforms. Like, we've discussed this ad nauseum now. I do not want to dig into unfounded conspiracy theories that can breed hate and get people hurt. And then I was misled, by the way, on how it was going to be handled, because it was like, no. We also agree this is unfounded and unsubstantiated. And I thought we were going to present all sides of the story. And when that didn't happen, and then you had Lindy Li sitting there saying that Max Blumenthal, she thought was a credible source of news, despite the fact that the guy takes money from Iran. I mean, I lost it. And the thing is, I was responsible for that platform. So I did not want to be a party to anything that I thought, quite honestly, was flirting with anti-Semitism for clicks. That's how I felt.
And what was the overall feedback that you got from?
Oh my God, death threats that I was a genocidal Zionist.
And did you get support? I'm guessing you got too.
I did.
Attention to the negative more is what I have found that I do sometimes. But I'm just going to tell you, because I know it's thousands of messages and DMs and tweets that you don't have time and probably should not go through.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
you did what was good for you, what was the best thing for you at that moment. And it's really not that different from Russell Brand at this moment, what he is doing, what all of us have had to do, what Dave Rubin does every single August, which I have
Yeah.
so much respect for, which is to make a commitment, first of all, to do this for his family and doing for yourself, right, as well. And those are things that you need to be in a healthier place. I love
Yeah.
that you did it, Jillian, and I know you've rerun it in your head 100,000 times, as I have with many things in my life as well. But no one can tell you what your boundaries are and what the limits and the
See?
lines are. You have to take care of yourself. And I know this is different for you because you are. I mean, a year plus ago when you and I first met on the set of my show when it was still in Los Angeles, I mean,
Yes.
you're completely different as far as where you sit on social media now versus then. So, like,
I know.
I just want you to be kinder to yourself. I know you've been attacked in many other ways with your previous life as well, with Biggest Loser and all that stuff. But, like, I don't know. I know that what I'm saying and what I'm doing is something I truly believe in. And I'm taking the time to educate myself. No one educates themselves more than you. And so take solace in that, be confident in that and your why behind it, and screw everybody else. Like, literally protect yourself, stand up for what you believe in, and walk away. And I don't read all the crap. Like, I can't.
You know what it is? I'm 70% Arab. I do have an Ashkenazi Jewish grandmother. I've never been to temple. I was raised without a religion. But in my opinion, anything that breeds hatred amongst people and prejudice and bias that is utterly unfounded is reckless and irresponsible. And I don't want to be a part of it. And I made that clear repeatedly to everyone involved. And I got ambushed with it again, and I was absolutely livid. And it wasn't a debate. That's the other thing. People are like, you should have debated. Debated what? It's an unfounded conspiracy theory that I just won't participate in. So I don't mean to beat this dead horse, but I got to tell you, I am not sorry. The only thing I'm sorry about is that I stayed as long as I did, and that's it.
Wow.
Because
Yeah,
I've
but
been bothered for a long time, and I had made it clear for a long time that I wanted things to change. And nothing ever seemed to change. And that was really the last straw for me. That's
well, I think
really what you saw, was me being like,
I think it's fairly obvious that their loss is our gain. And
No.
and I don't even mean just me and Sage, even though that's pretty obvious that we'll have you around here more. But the idea that someone like you, who's the most out of anybody, I think I said this to you on your show last week. I mean, you are the most open-minded, always looking for what your blind spots are, all of those things, and which is very hard to do on camera, right? Because everyone wants to be an expert all the time. The idea that you would be pushed so far that you had to take the mic off and walk off set
Yeah.
really shows you like the lunacy of all this. But I'll just say one other thing on this. I'd love your thoughts on this. That one of the things that I think also has kept me sane is if you really think about comments, when you do something and you get all this hate, right? So let's say we put this video up right now and it gets 100,000 views, right? And if a video gets 100,000 views, maybe it gets, I don't know, 1,500 comments. That's basic. Maybe you get 10% of the people viewing comments. That means that probably 90% around watched and probably thought it was fine or agreed or disagreed or whatever, but then they went about their lives and moved on. But there is a certain type of person that comments. And then we all start thinking that certain personality type is exactly what is indicative of the larger society. And when I really was able to like get that into my brain, that the comments, it's not that the comments are not legit. Yes, some of them are just haters, some of them are bots, and some of them are trolls. But also the type of person that comments, and this is not even a commentary on them, but the type of person that is in there commenting is going to be more inclined to do the over-the-top stuff, the angry stuff, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that I'm most proud of, my guys know this, like the comments on our channel are so positive and on point, and I think that's indicative of what I've tried to create over the years. and what we try to create here. And actually, Jillian, I just was watching our interview and because I wanted to see the comment thing, and your channel is very the same. And Sage, I know yours is too. But that's because we've cultivated that. But that's not the way most of the internet works. So long story short, they are what they are. How about that?
And you are right, Jillian, right where you are supposed to be. Like that, all that happens for a reason. I hope you don't second guess it. I'm really, spiritual and deep and really looking so deeply at so many things in my life right now. Your journey has been incredible and ups and downs along the way, all of our journeys. And like, it takes that to get to today. Like you can't, I don't want to change anything, even the stuff that was painful back then. Right. And so we're so happy that you're here right where you should have been the whole damn time. P.S. Just saying. Glad that you're back.
Oh, thanks, guys. It means the world. It absolutely does. And sometimes I wonder, and I said to my business partner the other day, I was like, well, my wife just got like 10 more death threats in her DMs. And someone called my son a little Nazi. And I was dropped by CAA's Speakers Bureau and like all these things you go through. And I was like, maybe we should have just endorsed Ozempic and sex changes for kids and wide open borders. Like we should have just left it. I should have been the poster girl for all of it. And none of this would have happened. But honestly, on my deathbed, I would have regretted it all.
Wait,
So
were you
right.
dropped by CAA's Speaker Bureau because of this thing that we're talking about right now? Or is that something else?
I was dropped by CAA's Speaker Bureau for saying on CNN that you cannot lay all the evils of the world at the foot of just one race.
That was her previous cancellation, Sage. You might have missed that one.
Yep. Very next day, I was like, didn't even answer.
Are you still with CAA for your representation?
No.
Yeah, I did that once too. Let's not.
I left them too.
Right. Yes.
No. No more.
Wait, that's absolutely hilarious. We've all either voluntarily or not voluntarily left CAA, and we're all doing okay. We all have a roof over our heads.
Lesson learned. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway, I really am glad to be back, guys. I won't hold us up. I know we have a lot to cover.
Well, no, in some sense, this is actually what the real meat of the show is, and then we got to get to some of the issues. So I'm gonna hit two things up top. One of them, I guess, is directly related to cause you to walk off the set, but it's sort of this endless jihad that, of course, this week was the second anniversary of October 7th, and there were all sorts of disturbing videos coming out of almost every country and the protests and all those things. But this one outside of New York City, or inside of New York City, right outside of the Fox building that we've all been to many times on 6th Avenue. So they take over the streets as always. They dress up exactly like the Hamas guys did on October 7th. And just listen to a bit from this speaker and the reaction.
We did not act enough. We did not act enough. If we acted enough. The headline behind me would read, Gaza has been liberated. So our work is not done. We must show up. Stronger than we did the first October 7th. Louder than we did the first October 7th. To make it clear that we are not going anywhere. We will keep fighting until Palestine is free. From the river to the sea. Within our lifetime.
Guys, I covered this on my show this morning. I don't even know, in some sense, what to really say about this because, first off, he repeatedly says, we did not act enough on October 7th. We will be louder. We will be stronger than the first October 7th. That is a 100%, like no equivocation, direct support of terrorism. It's on the streets of New York City, which happens to have the second largest population of Jews outside of Tel Aviv, Israel. We are just seemingly going to put up with this in the West now. Like, I don't know what the exact answer is. I know that you shouldn't be able to take over streets. I know you shouldn't be able to call for people to be murdered, but I don't think anyone's going to do anything. And the last thing I want is for our cities to start looking like London, but I think we're kind of there already, on top of the fact that there's a communist who's going to take over in about 3 weeks. Jillian?
Me. Okay. You know what, Dave, as a layman, I want to play devil's advocate here and just say, all right, we're protesting. Fine. You're exercising your right to free speech. Great. This is America. You're upset about what's going on in Gaza. I think most of us are upset about what's going on in Gaza, and we want to see bloodshed stop across the board. What I find so disturbing is that there was never, not the day after October 7th and not 2 years after October 7th, any condemning of Hamas by these people. None. Zero. Absolutely none. Instead, it's from the river to the sea, glory be to the martyrs, flood Philadelphia, flood New York. Like, that part I find so disturbing. And when you go head to head with somebody who is like, I agree, I'm out there in the streets, where is your outrage about that piece? Where is your outrage about the fact that Qatar is putting more money into American politics, American media, American influencers than evil Israel that's the size of New Jersey? If you're upset about foreign governments putting money into our country, where's your outrage about all the other foreign governments doing it? In particular, Qatar, who practically doubles what I think Israel puts in. Like, it is just complete selective outrage. Like, you want to be outraged? Be outraged. Where's your outrage, as Bill Maher just said, about what's happening in Nigeria to Christians? What, nothing? Crickets, nothing? And as Van Jones just said, and I can't believe I'm about to quote him, if it's not the Jews, it's not news. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sage.
Well, Sage, what do you think about for those of us that want to respect free speech, there's two components here, because there's the taking over of streets. I mean, that means ambulance can't get through. You can't, if you have a store that happens to be on 6th Avenue, and, there's plenty of just little local delis. I'm not even talking about big bad Starbucks. Like, you can't properly do commerce. So there's that version. But then there's also the direct call for violence, like supporting terrorism on the streets of New York City.
I was told when a few years back when I was at ESPN and complained about a protest at one point, especially considering the hypocrisy involved in it, long story. And I'm like, and you're blocking the streets to head into LAX, blah, blah, blah. I was told, shut up, you idiot. That's what a protest is all about, to disrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's part of it. And if we are going to give free speech to everyone, even non-citizens of our country, then we have to sit back and do nothing and work around it and plan a little bit earlier and drive a different route. I don't know. It makes me mad because it seems like those protesting are always protesting things like this. So that part, to me, I don't know that you can stop it. And that
well, you can if you live in Florida. I mean, we deal with it differently. DeSantis has flat out said, you take over a street, the drivers can go through you. I mean,
yes, that's what I mean. Yes. And that's why we aren't there. That's my point.
Right.
Is in New York, you're not stopping it because none of the quote unquote leaders there want to stop it. And it's about to get even worse with Mondani. That's my point. I am usually a glass half full person. To me, I'm not. I'm not anymore in New York City. It has been kind of a slow trickle here where it's been allowed to get to this point. And now look, and it isn't just blocking streets and making inconveniences for people. It is actually spewing hatred and encouraging terrorist acts. So, New York City, what are you going to do? Right? If Donald Trump has his way and he goes in and cleans up New York City, just like he did Washington, D.C., just like he's trying to in Detroit and Chicago and Portland and Memphis, Tennessee, great. But we know that they're going to be met with, the worst possible scenarios, right? We'll come and attack them if they
go after this.
You can't. You cannot. To me,
it's not crime, and it's not. No. They're not, impeding ICE. So
but that's my point, Jillian. But that's my point. Is you can't do those things. And I believe New York City is gone. I do.
Have you guys seen this? I just read about this yesterday and I didn't have time to dig in, but apparently there's a Cuban guy who's a really successful businessman. I should look up his name. So I'm like, did you see this yet? And he's running for mayor and he's pretty friggin' impressive. Have you seen this?
Wait, a Cuban guy who's running for mayor of New York City? I think I saw something on Instagram, but like, he has no support really, but he gets freedom. I saw one viral video of him. Yeah.
Hold on. He's actually impressive. I just saw it yesterday and I was briefly discussing it with friends.
I feel
Hold
like
on.
it's
What
such
is
a
this guy's
machine there. When
name?
they choose who they want, which is Mondani, then it doesn't really matter at
Joseph
this.
Hernandez. Okay, Joseph Hernandez, listen to this. He comes from Cuba, so obviously he says he is the antithesis, literally, of Mamdani. Um, Super impressive guy, born in Cuba, immigrated to the US at 7 years old. He's an entrepreneur in biotech and healthcare. He's got multiple degrees, a BS, an MS, an MBA. He also pursued studies at Yale and Oxford. So, like, he's not a fluff case, this guy. I'm hoping that a few powerful people get behind him, and there's hope here. He's got his policies. I took a moment, literally only a moment yesterday, but he talked about taking commercial real estate and using that for low income housing and essentially incentivizing rich people to help poor people, not stealing from rich people to help
Jillian,
poor people.
Sounds great. And at the end of the day, the fact that, at this point, kind of
I
later in the
know.
we're
know.
hoping that Cuomo is the one to come in and save New York City. Tells you
I
how
don't
far
see
it's
that,
fallen.
guys. I don't
And at
see
the end
it.
of the day, I'm sorry. No, of course not. But compared to Mondani, but at the end of the day, I hate to say you reap what you sow, but New York City has allowed it to get to this point where we're even having this conversation, and demonstrations like that are okay. And listen, I sat down with Linda McMahon a couple of weeks ago. I guess her show aired just this past week, and talked about, trying to hold these universities accountable. But when they let it get to that point, at the universities, at Columbia in New York City and Harvard elsewhere, and UPenn, like I'm not going to say they have allowed it to get to this point where now New Yorkers are going, oh my gosh, but is it too little too late? I say yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm completely with you. It is too little too late. There aren't enough good people anymore to turn it around right now. The real question would be that if Trump, look, at the end of the day, if you have people on your streets literally calling for murder, literally holding the flags of a terrorist organization that killed 47 Americans, blah, 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 like there is something the government can do. And again, with all of the stuff around respecting free speech as much as possible. But let's put it this way, Jillian, because I can see you're a little hesitant that we should do anything.
I don't think they can.
Well,
I really think they can.
I would put it this way. I would put it this way. If someone in London could turn back the clock 10 years and go, maybe we should have done something a little bit more aggressive so that it wouldn't have gotten this bad, I think every single person that is now drunk at noon at a pub who's an old school Brit would be doing it. That, I guess, would be the point.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we've done is Trump has closed the borders. And what's ironic about all of this, and I can't wait till we get to the stuff about ICE a little later on, but what's ironic about this is I was a super pro-immigration person. And at my core, I still am. I think when done appropriately, immigrants come here and they stimulate the economy. They start more small businesses. Their kids do better in school. I know so many immigrants who are fantastic people that provide jobs for everyday Americans and do amazing things. But when you have wide open borders and you don't manage the quotas, you don't control who comes in, people are not assimilating. And you're seeing that. They're not assimilating. And that's what happened in the UK, in my opinion. And that's what I think we're seeing here. So hopefully, with some control of the border and God willing in the future, some path to citizenship for good people, it will help and we'll get there. Maybe it's not too late, but this radical ideology, part of it is being imported without
The
question.
problem is it's here. I mean, that guy who was screaming that stuff didn't strike me as somebody who just came over. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's
Yes.
here and it's homegrown. But why don't we leave that portion here before we go too dark? Because then something good, actually, I wanted to cover something positive also that happened this week. And Bari Weiss, who I assume you guys know at least in a ancillary way, is now, she of course started Free Press. She famously left the New York Times years ago. She was kind of an old school liberal. She saw how woke it went and she wasn't happy with it. She left the New York Times very publicly on her own accord, ends up starting the Free Press. They crush it in terms of subscriptions. She then sold it this week to Paramount. So she will basically be taking over CBS News. So you can see Paramount takes, $150 million. It's unclear how much she gets. Doesn't even matter. But I think there's some really good signs coming out of this, because if Bari, she's basically just a centrist, like I have my issues with her, she's basically just a centrist. If she can tack them back to the center and then people start watching CBS News again, it might cause NBC and ABC and maybe even CNN, to all start coming back to the center, because at the end, they're all trying to get views and clicks. So that's the bet I think that CBS is making. It's a $150 million bet. If we go back to someone who basically is a centrist and somewhat trusted amongst kind of average people, will it work? I kind of think it's going to work. I pray it works. What do you think, Sage?
I hadn't actually thought about that domino effect of it, and I'm so glad you brought that up. You're so right, because these networks are followers in that way anyway. Leaders, they've never done the right thing. They wait to see which way the wind blows. That is the most exciting part of it. I don't know Bari. I would love, I'm sure you do, help me meet her, because I so admire
her. It can be
her.
arranged.
I remember when she left the New York Times, and our timing was somewhat similar with some of my troubles at ESPN. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, good for her for taking a chance on herself and going out and then doing what she's done, the way she's done it, and true professionalism and journalism. What a concept. And you talk about revenge, not that she was seeking revenge, but to stand up, because that was really, really hard to leave an iconic, and I know that we can define and describe the New York Times quite differently these days, but historically an iconic, right? An iconic newspaper. And to say goodbye on principle, that takes so much. And she goes on and she does this in her Substack and just builds and builds and builds. Number one, go get it, girl. Take that money to the bank. And I am thrilled for you. Like, hello, America. She did it. Capitalism. I love it. And secondly, I think about the personal side of this for her, because I think the professional side, you've said it incredibly, Dave, as always. But what does that feel like? To know that you took a chance on yourself and along the way brought others with you and uplifting others as well, and staying true to your morals and values. I don't know that she ever dreamt of something like this. Probably not when she left, of all places, the New York Times. And to look what she's done and how she can influence. Do we agree with everything she says and does? No, of course not. But she is, I think, the best possibility of someone to come into a place like CBS News. Look at what their recent history has been with 60 Minutes. And I mean, the lack of credibility. They have ruined their own credibility that they built up through so many years with incredible journalism on 60 Minutes in particular. So I am so thrilled for this. And everybody else, imagine the tremors going through those other networks, really. And even the CNNs and the Fox Newses, not just ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, right? But the real fringes there, where they're going to, maybe she does start a trend, but from a personal level, I could just hug her. It would probably be inappropriate if I saw her. She'd be like, I don't know you. Why are you hugging me? But she is, by standing up for herself, she was reminding all of us that we must be true to our principles, even when it's difficult. And now she could be changing everything about American media.
By the way, let me just tell you one quick insider thing that I think she'd be okay if I shared. That a little bit after she left the New York Times, it was during COVID, and we had one of our like secret COVID parties at our house when we still lived in LA. And she came over. I think it was the first time she'd ever been to my house, I think. And she I think maybe had just started her Substack, or was thinking about starting it. Like, she basically did not have a career anymore. You know what I mean? Like, she had connections. Sure, she was at the New York Times, had connections, but she left without a job. Did not know, did not know whether the subscription thing was going to work. Certainly didn't know that she would be able to turn Substack into something much bigger than her. So it truly was a jump. Like, I actually know that firsthand. It's not like she left and somebody was like, here's $50 million, like, get going. It simply was not that. So,
I mean, didn't she have a wife and kids, and she's the breadwinner for this family too? It's not her. Like, I was impressed with her at the time, and this is beautiful to see, Jillian.
Her wife, I think, left the New York Times with her. Nellie is also. I don't know if they co-own the Free Press. They might. Do they, Dave? But Nellie always writes for the Free Press. I'm always reading her stuff. I've never met Nellie. But I've met Bari. I was lucky enough to be on her podcast, Honestly, with Callie Means over Maha. And she asked me some tough questions, and I really respected that. And she was open to the things that we had to say. I had her on my podcast about Gaza, actually, quite a while ago. And I asked her some tough questions, and she answered them honestly with this is going to sound crazy to people, but with what I perceived as zero bias. And I asked her some pretty tough questions about Netanyahu, and she didn't just push back in a tribal fashion. I find that everything I read on the Free Press is relatively fair. They criticize Trump when they see fit. They praise Trump when they see fit. And I love it. I feel like it keeps me honest. So I'm pretty excited that her content will go more mainstream. And as you said, Dave, I'm hoping that there's an aftershock effect with all the other channels because I think we need it desperately. We live in these echo chambers and it makes us fight with each other, which we just simply cannot do anymore, at least to the degree that we have been.
Just to put a pin in this, we've seen like all three of us, we occasionally still go on mainstream stuff. Jillian, you were on CNN and almost got canceled a couple of weeks ago. Sage and I, mostly it's Fox these days. CNN won't let me in the building. But the point is that the online people sort of make little blip appearances in the mainstream world. And it's weird because we've sort of eclipsed them at this point. But now the mainstream basically being like, we have to now, in essence, buy an institution online to fix us. That is such a flip of everything that,
Great.
hopefully it really is the signal to the system.
That is going to be so fun to watch, and to watch just the news, the broadcast, CBS this morning, 60 Minutes, et cetera, and to see if we see any even subtle changes. That could mean changes in talent, because with is it Gayle King and the people that they have really front and center, I mean, they've been quite biased. So it'll be nice.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to
Guys,
see.
will you forgive me? Since Sage was eating her home shopping stuff, my cat has been screaming outside the door. Can you see? I have to let him in. I don't know if you can hear this. Well, I'm like,
Screaming
okay,
cat. I mean,
come on,
screaming
buddy.
children, screaming
Yeah.
cats.
I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional, but since Sage
It's
ate home
horrifically unprofessional.
shopping
Fortunately,
I like how you compare it to me.
He's crying at the door, my third child. So, sorry, go ahead.
I love
Sage,
it.
I'm ready.
No,
what do you got, Sage?
I take great pride in being the least professional person on this panel. Really, it's fine. Okay, we were talking about the state of media to an extent, thanks to Bari Weiss, Go Girl. I'm going to bring up my former employer. I don't love talking about them, because that's in the past, but they continue to really step on their own toes, really, with some of the decisions that they're making. So it came out this past week, thanks to our friend Clay Travis at Outkick, who is a known and vocal ESPN hater, loves holding them accountable. I don't have a problem with it. And it came out that Paul Feinbaum, who has been a real star at ESPN, college football, in particular the SEC network, for more than a decade, was taken off the air. And I don't know, call it a suspension, call it what you will, but taken off the air after his comments on Clay Travis's show about his potential run for a Senate seat in Alabama. And he was open about it, just like others have been open about it on who are ESPN stars, maybe not on ESPN Airways, but ESPN stars, namely Stephen A. Smith, who has said on more than one occasion that he would be happy to consider a run for president of the United States as a Democrat. So they take Paul Feinbaum off the air because he talked about the possibility of it. And then in the meantime, when Stephen A. said it, nothing. Right after that, they gave him, as you see here, my friend Bobby Burak, who's a great writer who works also for Outkick, 5-year, $100 million contract that allows him to do literally anything he wants. No, I mean, Stephen A., there's the Stephen A. rules at ESPN, and then there's everybody else. And you know what? He's a friend, Dave, of yours as well. More power to him. The point is, and I retweeted Bobby's tweet here, because it's all about consistency. This is the exact reason why I sued ESPN, of course, under the Disney umbrella in 2022 and settled with them in August of 2023 because of the lack of consistency. If you're going to suspend Paul Feinbaum for saying he might consider a run for Senate in Alabama while he's still an employee at your network, well, then you must suspend Stephen A., correct? Why the double standard. I think we all know why. That is because of who leads Disney and ESPN, starts at the top, Bob Iger. He almost ran for president himself in 2020 as a Democrat. He is as far left as they get. So we understand why, but the point is, if we don't point out these hypocrisies, I'm not saying Paul Feinbaum should file a lawsuit, just like what has happened to me or what I decided to do. But you got to continue to point it out. And then maybe things begin to turn. Maybe, like what happened with Bari Weiss. Like, you absolutely never know. But by the way, ESPN didn't release an official statement, but denied that they suspended him, took him off the air. Clay Travis is like, hey guys, trust me and my sources, as he had just sat down with Paul Feinbaum himself, who went from being scheduled on all of these shows to suddenly plucked off of them. ESPN panics and then puts them back on suddenly just to kind of CYA. So we shouldn't be surprised by these things. Dave, if you want to jump in first, we shouldn't be surprised. But at the end of the day, I do feel like we must continue to point it out if we want a potential change to ever come.
Right. So I completely agree with that. I guess the only thing I'm surprised about here, I'm not surprised about the inconsistency. I'm not surprised about the hypocrisy, any of that stuff. The only thing that seems surprising to me is that, assuming what Clay, and obviously it was Paul that told him what happened, and then you see the rejiggering of the schedule after and all that stuff, assuming all of that is true, which there's every reason to believe it is, I don't understand what ESPN was thinking. I don't mean in terms of ideology. I mean just in terms of pure PR. What did they think was going to happen if they plucked this guy who's hugely, hugely popular and took him off all of these shows? Knowing that everything we've been through in the culture in the last couple of years, what did they think was going to happen? That just nothing was going to happen? That nobody was going to say anything? Or people would be like, I don't know, maybe he has a cough? Like, what did they actually think was going to happen? So in some ways, it's the most self-inflicted wound. And that also shows you a little bit of still how, even post Sage Steele at ESPN, how corrosive the ideology is there. Because there was no reason, none of this makes any sense from a PR perspective or any other like business perspective, right? And yet they still did it and then backtracked the second the obvious thing happened. So it just feels, something feels like missing or just really broken in that system.
Leave it alone. But they continue, Jillian, to make such boneheaded decisions in this way. Leave it alone. You let Stephen A. And by the way, this is a great opportunity to prove that you're not as biased as you once were. Like, just let it go. He said potential run. So now, and he also shared, Paul did, that ESPN nixed a Donald Trump interview that he had a few years back. And when he said that, I was like, oh, wow, because I have the exact same story, one that I have not gone deep into and will at some point. And I thought, well, at least I'm not the only one they took it away from.
Today's the day, right? You got to tell this story now.
But you got to Biden one.
Well, but that's why. After the ESPN thought, oh, wait, we better give this back to a different president now that he's the one here. But this was after all the years of Obama on the air for the Final Four, the March Madness picks, et cetera. So the inconsistencies continue. You'd think that they would learn the lessons. Apparently not. But Jillian, I know that you aren't some big sports geek with this, but you don't have to be to see the hypocrisies and then why people continue to remove themselves from mainstream media. And I obviously think for the sake of sports, ESPN is that.
I'm just a little confused because Stephen A. has said things that go against the Democrats quite often these days. He seems to have taken a very Bill Maher-esque kind of approach where he calls out the crazy over there. I love him. I've never met him, and unfortunately, if anybody, I'll give you the Bari introduction if you give me the Stephen A. introduction. I can't figure out why they're allowing him to engage in those conversations, but they're not allowing the guy who wants to run for Senate as a Republican.
Can I take a stab at that?
Please, because how vastly divergent are their points of view?
So the stab I would take is that when Stephen A. says something that is to moderate the Dems, I'm going to guess that a guy like Bob Iger, actually, that is what he really wants. And that's maybe why he was considering running for president. That as woke as he may have turned the company into, he's probably not in his heart of hearts a true loony radical. So when Stephen A. says something that might moderate the Dems, he views that as a win. but he's not a Republican. So if now Paul is like, I may run for something, that strikes him as more of a threat. Again, it's all the hypocrisy and inconsistencies, but I think there might be a little logic to it.
Maybe, but to me, it's not even that deep. It is literally Stephen A. has the Stephen A. rules and everybody else has their own rules. He literally has on First Take on ESPN every single day, and the bottom line, he has them promoting his YouTube show. ESPN has no ties, and they don't benefit at all financially from his YouTube show. It's brilliant. Like, I mean, honestly, I think every single thing he's done has been brilliant and smart. So, number one, different rules. Number two, and this is the biggest part, he's one of the smartest men that I've ever worked with. And he knows that if he crushed the Republicans last week, let's balance that out and crush the Democrats this week. Dave, after admitting on your show that he voted for Kamala Harris because he didn't like the way Donald Trump spoke at times. I mean, hi, this is 2024, breaking news. We've known that for a minute there. You refuse to look at the actual policies and everything else that President Trump would stand for versus Kamala Harris. You know what? It's really easy now, and I've said this to you. It's very, very easy now to go against the Democrats because now it's the cooler, more acceptable thing to do. So I don't even think it's that deep. I think he's a very savvy businessman, and he likes to stay good on both sides.
By the way, there are just people in our space. We all know this, and I actually don't mean this as a knock to Stephen A. either. There are people that just play the game really well, right? Like there are some people that lead with their emotions more. There are some people that are really in it for ideological reasons, for personal reasons, whatever. And then there are some people that really do understand that to some extent it is a game. And I think Stephen, and I really don't mean this to knock him, it's impressive to do that. And I think he overall has been a force for good politically and waking people up and all of those things. But there is an extent. So I think you're right on that. It's like, you don't vote for Trump, so then you get a certain amount of credit. Then you sit with me for an hour and only say good things about Trump. And it's like, well, why didn't you vote for him? But it's a bit of a game, which we'd all be happy to have him on here and discuss that. And I think he'd be fine with that.
He's awesome.
Jillian, I'm gonna toss to you next, Jillian, but I'll wrap that up and my segment up by saying 5 years, $100 million. That's the contract he just signed to come live in South Florida, do whatever he wants, when he wants, where he wants. So damn right, savvy business move. He can do whatever the heck he wants. And I think it literally comes down to that. You balance him out. You get one here, but you make up for it tomorrow. And so, hey, kudos to him. On that note, I'm done.
You're done. Okay, my turn. All right, guys. So I'm going to do the Pam Bondi story. In case you missed it, she went head to head with Senate Democrats in a fiery hearing that covered kind of everything from the Epstein files to the Comey indictment to National Guard crackdowns. This had it all. Take a look here.
Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question.
Ooh. Sage, what's that Bible verse about, like, before you focus on the speck in someone else's eye, focus on the log in your own? Am I misquoting this or am I getting this right?
Something about glass houses and stones. That's not biblical, right. But it's the point.
Am I crazy? What do we think about that? I also want to get to the Comey indictment, and I want to get to the federal guard going into Chicago and Portland and all of that. But what do we think about this Epstein thing? I mean, this thing will not die. I don't actually think I want it to die. I do think there needs to be accountability, but it feels like we're never going to get it. What's your take on this one, guys?
I actually think everything you just said there is completely right. Like something really fishy and bad and obviously illegal happened, and there was some version of some kind of honeypot, and there were probably multiple intelligence agencies involved, and it seems like it went across partisan bounds and all of those things. But I don't know that we will ever get anything, because every time they drop something, it's like, here's a flight log. And there was one and it included Elon's name, but then it turned out he wasn't on the flight. Or they'll say Trump did this, and then it turns out that Trump actually was the one that literally kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago and out of the West Palm Beach, like elite scene, 15 years ago. So it's just so damn messy. And unless there is someone out there that has, one of the victims, I assume, that has some kind of hardcore evidence, photographs, something, it just seems like it's kind of gone now. And you can only hope that anyone who was damaged in this and abused or whatever gets whatever help they need.
Yeah, I made a post about this like a month ago because it's just disappointing to me. I would feel differently if Trump had not campaigned on it. But it was a big priority. And then what happened? Pam Bondi and holding up the binder, and I have everything on my desk. I have the papers. I have the list. I have whatever it was. And then let's make it even more dramatic with the influencers and handing out the binders to the influencers. And then there's silence. So that's the problem. If we had not been promised answers on this, I don't think half the people who are upset, hey, the Democrats weren't upset about this until the Republicans during this term didn't produce the evidence that they promised.
Right.
Where were the Democrats all these years, right? So at the end of the day, it's kind of their mistake for going there. And as far as that clip you just ran, Jillian, the Democrat senator, good on Pam Bondi in that moment. Did you see him? He was looking down, the clenching in his jaw, no eye contact. That was the best response.
Awesome. The other thing I want to just point out quickly about this is Dave, you brought up the fact that I previously went on CNN several times in an attempt to bridge ideologies. And before Elon had put out that tweet about Trump and Epstein, they were saying, like, why do you care? Why does it matter? There's nothing to see here. Why do you care? And my answer was, somebody needs to be held accountable. There are victims involved. Like, who is using children and sex trafficking to pull levers of power? Like, we need accountability, blah, blah, blah. The minute they thought that Trump could possibly be implicated, now they're dogs with a bone. I'm like, wow, okay. Again, I come back to the selective outrage. We all want the files. We're like, if Trump's in them, he's in them. We want them. We want them. Nobody's stopped calling for them on, quote, our side. But on the left, it's like, you guys are crazy. You're all wearing a tin hat. There's nothing to see here. This is baloney. But when you think Trump's involved, now do you want the files?
That's what happens when you put ideology over truth, right? You'll bend over backwards and twist yourself into a pretzel. But also, Sage, to your point, that's why when Bondi, to me, the thing that really screwed this up for everybody was when Bondi said she had it on her desk. I think we talked about this on the show a couple months ago, because when she said, I have the files on the desk, everyone was like, oh, there is some clean cut case now. You've got pictures, you've got evidence. Who knows what she meant? Did she mean on my desk, in a figurative way, oh, they're working on it? But she kind of said it in a literal way. But then once she said the files, well, the files might just be flight logs. And just because you were on a flight doesn't necessarily mean you partook in something. And maybe there were people that partook in things that weren't on flight logs. There's so many avenues of craziness here that's why it feels like it's just it's just dead in the water now. But yeah, you're both right about the Democrats did not care until they thought Trump had something to do with this.
But they're too smart. I think Pam Bondi's too smart to be that sloppy with speech. I honestly
think. So what do you
think
she meant then? What do you think she meant when she said that?
To have him on her desk, and then maybe they found out certain details about certain people, and then we need to not release it. Maybe, I don't want to say there could be a good reason for not releasing it, but maybe it's because it is tied to this person and their allies, and that could affect the safety of our country. You can go anywhere with it. The problem is when you are as brilliant as she is and experienced, these people are wordsmiths. They know everything will be taken literally. And so she said what she said, and then it went dark. And then people ask questions and say, well, here's what I meant. So they did a terrible job in the way they chose to handle it, really from the beginning. Like, don't say a damn thing until you are sure. And instead, they were kind of showboating, and now look what's happened. So I am as supportive of this administration as anyone, and I want to be fair. And there needs to be accountability if this is something that you promised the American people.
Fair. Do you guys have the time to touch upon?
Pick one of the two.
Pick one of the two. I want ICE. I want that one. And for good reason. So, real quick, we'll talk about the National Guard and ICE. She also defended the National Guard deployments to high crime cities, saying the federal government would step in if Democratic mayors refuse to protect their citizens. And while that is the National Guard and it's not ICE, it does sort of go hand in hand with the theme that ICE and the National Guard are the president's private military that he's turning on citizens and disappearing people of color. And we should all revolt against this Gestapo. Please correct me if I've gotten this wrong somewhere. But I believe they're all ICE has sworn an oath to the president of the United States. No. Was it not the country, the Senate? Who? It's not Trump. And are they not enforcing laws enacted by Congress, who's also made up of Democrats and Republicans, laws that have been around for years and years and years? Like, what is the war on the Guard? What is the war on ICE? Why are we blaming? If you don't like the policy, change the policy. But why is the public stupid enough to go after law enforcement that's just doing their job? Is it me? What am I? Have I lost my mind? What is it?
Dare I say you know the answer to your question? I mean, this is just because of mass propaganda. First off, ICE has existed for years under Democrat and Republican administrations. They're finally allowed to do the job they set out to do, which is find illegals. I mean, look, at the end of the day, whether it's someone's housekeeper that is a perfectly nice person that's been here for 15 years and is law-abiding and everything else, are some people going to get caught up in that maybe all of us were kind of like, oh, that wasn't the intention? Probably. But they really are mostly going after criminals and gang members and drug dealers and whatever. But is it possible? And that's part of the problem, that the immigration conversation has been so bludgeoned with false cries of racism and everything else that a certain set of people just have no tolerance for people that they would have had more tolerance for. You know what I mean? So with the housekeeper,
go after the policy. If you don't like the policy, then vote differently. But you cannot go after federal law enforcement officers and dox them. And literally, people have put a price on some of their heads, and they're just doing their job.
Yeah, but you know this, Jillian. I mean, no, you do. You trust me, you do. We played a clip on my show this morning of Jon Stewart talking about this. And he said something, I can almost get the quote exact. He goes, and they're throwing grandmas down on the linoleum, and they're putting kids in zip ties. And what I said on the show was, it's funny, John, because you have a box with images right here that are always, kind of showing what you're talking about. You didn't show any grandmas on linoleum, and you didn't show any kids in zip ties, because it doesn't exist. But that's the answer to your question. That's the answer to your question.
I was like, what kids in zip ties? There was like a 17-year-old that appeared to have been trafficked through a Trend Aragua member, and they had detained and restrained her in zip ties. That's the only thing I could find, any story that had any relevance. And you've seen Gavin Newsom, oh my gosh, they're deporting American citizens. Zero, none. When you try to figure it out, you get Kilmar Abrego Garcia is the answer you get back through.
They love that guy.
Unbelievable. Who's not an American citizen, by the way, and is a human trafficker. But that's okay. We'll table that. Then
Beat his wife with a boot. Don't forget that.
Oh yes, wife beater, of course. Who had 2 deportation orders and then claimed asylum. But just it takes 5 minutes to research it online. And again, even if you were to be outraged about the policies, because the stuff you're hearing about ICE is not true. It's not true. Do your homework. Oh, they're disappearing people.
Giving them too much credit, Jillian, to the fact that you think that they would even connect the dots that it's policy, not the ICE officials or the officers. Like, these are the same people that were told all police are bad. Let's attack
Yes.
everybody. Let's abolish Detroit and Minneapolis and Portland. Like these people are also like Antifa, and they're brought together to attack anyone in authority. So I just think that I don't mean that in a rude way, but like you're giving them way too much freaking credit. They want to have an excuse to tear down, to attack, and it's in hordes of people. I mean, these people are dark and evil in my mind and want to attack. And they have been told, they've been fed the propaganda by leaders in their cities, by the Karen Basses of the world who are stop them and go after them. Like they are encouraging it. And it's actually no different from, the ideologies that have been pushed onto our children that have led to these mass shootings, frankly, where you're told Hitler, Nazi, that's who Republicans and Trump and Charlie Kirk are. There is absolutely no difference here.
And by the way, if you want the easiest way to expose the ridiculousness of all of this, what's the other thing that they say about these ICE guys? That they're masked and they shouldn't be masked. But why are they masked? For the same reason Peter Parker put on a mask to be Spider-Man. It wasn't to protect himself. It was to protect Aunt May and Mary Jane, his girlfriend, because they will literally come after your family. As you pointed out, they're doxing these guys. Now, ironically, though, why is it that they never have a problem when guys who are dressed up like Hamas are out there with masks? So the Democrats are completely fine with people literally calling for genocide on the streets with terrorist flags, and you can be masked and do it. But if you're doing the job of cleaning up the cities and you wear a mask, somehow your children deserve to be doxxed.
Forget the protests. What about the riots? You're out there looting, setting cars on fire, destroying property in your mask. Like protesting, this is actually a crime, what these guys are doing in some cases in some of these cities. Attacking law enforcement, that is a crime. Destroying property, that is a crime. Looting, crime. And they're allowed to wear these masks. But our law enforcement that is getting doxxed and having their lives threatened and having their families' lives threatened, which is very real, and I've now experienced it on some very small level. You've got scumbags, I'm sorry, like Gavin Newsom, acting like he is some sort of hero doing this to these guys, putting their lives at risk and their families' lives at risk, despite the fact that they are literally just enforcing federal law. It is their job. They don't even make the law. And if you don't like the law, do something about it. It's that simple.
The Democrats have done a great job brainwashing millions of people and twisting the narrative to get to the point where we are today. Like it breaks my heart. That is why we have to continue to speak up and have conversations and speak the truth and not go and hide because of the legitimate fears that are out there after what we witnessed with our friend Charlie Kirk. Like we just have to continue to talk about these things and try to communicate the facts with the younger generation. Like I mean it, because those are many of the people who are out there trying to beat up the ICE officers and the police officers. I have these conversations with my kids all the time, and continuing to make sure that they're finding other outlets from which to get their news, not just TikTok. Like it runs so much deeper. We've got to start over in many ways and re-educate our youth so they don't end up like this. Like it's heartbreaking right now, though. Like I said, we're expecting a lot out of the people who are already there. I think they're already gone, kind of like New York City.
I hope not. I hope you guys are wrong. It takes 5 minutes to fact
I hope, but I don't think.
What Americans have been deported? None. What, like, children with their families who are still citizens that can come back anytime because the parents wanted to take their kids. Like, just do yourself a favor and do your fellow American citizens a favor and spend friggin' 5 to 10 minutes researching these insane claims made by politicians like Newsom, Pritzker, Bass, so on and so forth. It just might save the goddamn world. Sorry, it just might.
Well, Jillian, thank you for doing Sage and I a favor by not walking off the set. I know that's very difficult for you to do, but we completed a show without Jillian leaving in the middle of the broadcast. It's incredible. Welcome back.
Thanks, Dee. Thanks, Sage.
Girl.
Thanks, guys.